art. One of the things that I remembered when about flowers and art and that really clicked was when Jean did a program about art and bringing up things from the art museum and talked about principles of design, and I went, wait, I've taken a flower class that talks about that. And it just reminded me how much, how important those principles are. So I've got a couple things I'm going to do. One, actually, before I get into the design piece, tulips get a bad rap. So I'm going to give you a little tulip introduction, education, etc. There are two groups of tulips. You can probably guess which ones came in this week and which ones came in last week, right?
So is that the bad rap hat?
So what happens, people think these are dead and they aren't going to last. There are a couple of things that happen. One is these parrot tulips that are so fluted have really heavy heads, and tulips keep growing once they're cut. Roses don't do that. Daisies don't do that. You know, they just stop. They're just static. Tulips, so if you see, this one was actually, so they're about the same length, but you can see the head is matured, and so it's larger, so it's heavier. And then as the tulip stem, these were probably about this short last week. So as they've extended, the stem has also gotten thinner, so it can't hold it up as well. So there are a couple things you can do with that in designing. Is you can, one thing, it looks like these might not have been cut in a few days, so maybe they're not drawing up enough water either. But you could put it in, got this rosemary here, you could put it in and just rest it a little bit if you don't like the way it looks all over. Now, as this, with a fresh cut, it might take up more water, and water is more, causes the stems to be more turgid. That's the fancy word. And so this may actually stand up and move the other way. They'll move around, they'll move to the light, etc. Now the other thing, this one got really limp. He really wasn't cut. They don't like it when they don't get water. So I'm gonna cut.
How often do you have to cut it?
Every few days,
Okay.
I would say, when you change the water. So that what I'm gonna do with this one is just tuck it way down low where its head is super supported. And hopefully that will draw up some water by the end of the night, and I can show you how pretty it is when it's all over. Oh, here's one. Look how pretty that is.
Yeah.
So it looked like this on the outside. You didn't know what was hiding on the inside until it opens up. These parrot tulips, we have some that are just huge once they, and I'm pulling off the leaves that are going to be down in the water because it's the bacteria that will kill flowers before just about anything. And so the leaves are extra place for the bacteria to live. And we don't want to give them any home.
Where did these come from, do you know?
These came from California.
Really?
Yeah. I think, anyway.
What
Now-
kind of tulips are they again?
So these are called parrot tulips, and they're,
like the bird.
yep. And what I'll do is I'll send this one around, and you can look at the fluting on it. And actually send this one with it. This is a fringed tulip from last week as well. I mean, you can see, I'm just
Is
staring
the
at
French
my
the
video.
is the French the standard one?
The French are tall,
That is.
really tall.
What's
The standard tulips are just tulips. The other variety that I have here is a double tulip, which has actually about 3 times as many petals. So it'll open up and almost feel like a rose. And then these are parrot tulips that we got today, so you can see the fluting coming there, and some are come tighter than others. Okay, so that's probably enough about tulips at the moment. So in terms of design, what I did, I actually pulled the rosemary from my yard. Turn it around this way so you can see the prettier side. And then this is actually vinca vine from my yard, which parts of my yard is taking over. If you have a part of your yard that gets some shade and gets decent water, they will go gangbusters if you want it to cover up. Yeah, and it's got little blue periwinkle flowers. So I'm gonna tuck this across here and just kind of make a little curve. So one of the principles of design is movement. So I love the rosemary because it's got a ton of movement, and I want to emphasize that. So one of the things is I was placing these carrot tulips. That one needs to be just a little shorter. Ooh, it's starting, yay, it's starting to recover already. Is, as you think about your colors, as I wanted to kind of group these, oh, this is the one that needs to recover a little bit.
What temperature's your water?
This is just room temperature right now. Cold water's good too. So I kind of got a little curve here. I need another light color in here, so we'll pop this one in there. Oh, and back to the water. I always like to say, if you don't want to drink the water, neither do the flowers. Like if it's got those floaties and grodies, yeah. That's the bacteria, and it will do it in. So I've got a little curve going, and I want to accentuate that, so I'm going to pop this bright color. Thank you. Pop these all at the same height. Oh, and you see this dirt here?
Yeah.
That's where they grow in the sand, and they just come up and they gather up dirt. So I'm going to try to get as much of that off as possible. Maybe use another little leaf.
How often do you have your shears sharpened?
Not often enough. These need to be sharpened. I was just thinking about that with Mother's Day coming. I gotta get them sharpened. But I did find a guy who will come to our studio and sharpen them for us. So
Nice.
that is nice. I like that. So we could actually even just stop there, and I could add. This is called Baronia, which if you want to. This has got an interesting fragrance if you want to send that around. And so I could even add, to accentuate this movement, I could add that in here. I've got a few more tulips to play with, so let's see. Ooh, this one's really tall. Do I have, yeah, I've got a couple more that are tall. And I've been working this way, but if you want it to be all around,
Okay.
I'll work backwards from this side. Tuck this. The other thing I like about the rosemary is structure. That's another principle of floral design, is what is happening, the structure. If you see a lot of arrangements that have a ton of foliage and then the flowers kind of all tucked in, they're building the structure with the foliage. And what people don't know is a lot of times that foliage is as much budget as the flowers. So I always like to think less is more. And so I have 2 pieces of rosemary and a couple pieces of vinca vine, but the rosemary is so robust, it gives me lots of structure to support them.
Budget, do you mean you get with less flowers and more foliage, you're
Yeah,
less
so
expensive
let's say,
bouquet?
yeah, if you do
Okay.
like a $60 bouquet, 30 of it might be flowers and 30 of it might be, well, 10 of it or whatever is your base, but half might be flowers, half might be foliage, but you might not know that. Have to find the hole here. There we go.
Foliage, is that expensive?
It can be. And a lot of it is imported here in Arizona. I mean, we have some things that we can grow here. But a lot of the traditional foliage, like the leather leaf, which I don't use, that comes from Florida, so you have the shipping cost. And we get most of ours from Southern California. Let's see.
What kind of foliage do we have in our yards that we could use?
Rosemary.
Yeah,
Well,
rosemary, yes.
Yeah.
Some people might have Pittosporum, which is a round leafed,
Right.
myrtle.
Elephant food.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
yeah. The other thing that you can do is you can always test it if you're not sure. Actually, the citrus trees, you can take citrus foliage and use that. So then the next thing you look at is, as I turn around, is focal point, is where does your eye go? And this tulip's probably gonna go that way. I'll just let it go that way. It could use, actually, need a little more structure in there. Oh, I'll use some of this, since this is the same color. And support this little pop, put a little pop. Group. I like grouping all the colors. It's a little more modern than spreading it all out symmetrically and evenly. I tell people I'm kind of anti-symmetrical. Another one is balance. So for some people that means if you have a color this side, it has to be on this side. And if I was going to do that, then I would take some of this and put it over here. So that provides color balance. Another way to think about balance is visual balance or visual weight. So if you think about the rosemary on this side, there's a lot of visual weight over here. Well, I thought about that, kind of. Maybe it's just inside me, so it happens. I put the bright color over here because it's a counterbalance. And so you have balance, but it's not symmetrical, which makes me happy. And then, so in this design, where does your eye go? Where's the focal point for you? And it might be different for different people.
The lighter flowers.
The lighter flowers here, okay.
They're open too.
They're more open.
Yeah, they're more open, yep.
My ankle.
From your angle, okay, for that one.
Oh,
Cool.
It just,
Yeah,
it's just,
right there, yes,
it just stands out.
yeah. And then the other,
Are you all right?
you okay?
Just flying into the door.
And then the other, couple of other design principles are scale. So for example, I love pussy willows, as we were talking about that earlier. And we could pop those in there, and it could work because it's about 2/3 above the third of the whole arrangement. Some people might not like that scale though, so they may want to bring it down here. So I will do that. And if someone wants to collect pussy willows, those are very big bacteria magnets, so I don't want them in the water, but they do feel good when I take them home. And then negative space is another thing we think about. So I could put these in just like this, and have them, or I could open them up, and since they're kind of curved, I can accentuate the focal point of these light flowers by having it apart from each other. There's another one called pairing, that if I wanted to have them paired, but not have them right next to each other, I can find a hole here, where you have one that's just a little bit shorter than the other, but they're paired together.
Oh, yeah.
Now, or shadowing is another way to think about it. Another thing that we could do, there's a technique called sheltering. Let's see if I can get this extracted here. And we could take these, I think vine. I didn't bring my wire with me.
Oh,
Make a circle.
Yeah. And line this around each other.
Is that fantastic? Yeah.
And so if you have something like this, then it's sheltering the flowers. And so it can draw your eye in because you're looking underneath.
Oh, that's pretty. Like that.
So as you can see, just minor adjustments really change your experience of the design. And yeah, thank you. And I wanted to also share a couple of things that you all could do to help God's Garden Treasures. One is when you're on your phones and you're on Facebook, is go to our Facebook page and like it. Find a picture that you like and then share it with your friends that you're connected with. That gives us more exposure and shares what we're doing. We actually have a car show coming up. It's like, what does a florist have a car show for? One of my clients, I don't know if any of you know about the Ford GT, there are 700 of them being made. one of my clients was number 149, and she recently took delivery of hers. And I got so excited. I'm like, we have to have a car show. So April 28th, we will. Oh, is that the Feed My Starving Children? Okay, never mind. You can share it with people, but you can't come. No, you can come afterwards if you want. Or what time does it start?
9 to 11.
9. Okay, we're starting at 8, so you can come for a few minutes, see the car, and then head over. We're not too far from there. That worked out to be the only day with her schedule and my schedule, etc. So, and then for if you know people still in the workforce, admin day is coming up. You could. We'll be posting about that later this week. You could share that. Mother's Day, of course. And actually, along those lines, if you know anybody that might give you flowers for Mother's Day, or that give flowers to others for Mother's Day, those would be great connections for us too. And then I can hand these out for everybody. The postcard is one that we put on when flowers get delivered. It has flower tips on the back. And if you're not receiving our emails, you can, on the back there's a link that when you sign up you'll get more flower tips and links to our videos with our flower tips or whatever. But being on our email list would be great, even if you don't buy a ton of flowers or aren't sure if you would ever buy flowers. Sometimes it comes, and of course I know you think of me, but you could take one of our emails and forward it to somebody and say, hey, I was thinking about you, here's a cool email you might like. That is a great way to help us get the word out in the community as well. So I think that's all that I have. Anybody have questions, comments?
Karin, I do.
Yes.
You get more and more intelligent about what you're doing. Do you ever take classes? Have you done that before? A lot? A couple?
Yeah, so I actually got a certification shortly after Mary Lou and I sat down, and she gave me a lot of tips when I was starting my business. It was actually an online certificate. Well, back then it wasn't online. It was mail and video, and they sent me some videos on 8-track tapes, I think.
It's
been a little while. So yeah, and I had to take pictures of my designs and send it to the instructor and things. And then I'm part of the Arizona State Florist Association, and there's an expo every year, the last Sunday of July, and so there's always demonstrations and often hands-on classes. And then in the spring and the fall, our vendors, the ones who we buy flowers from and hard goods from, bring in instructors as well. And so sometimes they're demonstrations and sometimes they're hands-on. I get floral magazines. I don't read them as often as I should anymore, but yeah. And actually there's an organization called the American Institute of Floral Design, and they have a national symposium, and at the expo here in Arizona last year, I won the drawing and I get to go to the national symposium in the first week of July, so getting ready for that.
That's cool.
Is it somewhere
Where is
good?
that?
It's in Washington, D.C., which is really cool because it's right next to Baltimore where my sister and
wow.
nephews live. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll get to actually be at one of my nephew's birthday parties.
Do you
So
still do the Phoenix Art Museum thing?
that has actually been discontinued, unfortunately. When the new director came in, she discontinued that. So we haven't done that for a few years. And we're all sad. Yeah. But
We had fun going.
we did. There are some of us that have thought about, okay, can we find another venue or whatever, and no one quite has pulled together enough energy to get that going. But the Phoenix Art Museum League, the women that were part of running that, have reorganized into, I think it's called Women for the Arts, Valley Women for the Arts, something like that. Anyway, they're just in the process of reforming now.
See, I would think that the small demo or the art area at Tempe Center for the Arts would be a really nice place for that.
That could be too, yeah, yeah. So
Are we getting lilacs?
Lilacs, we got our first bunch in a week and a half ago.
Okay.
Yep, and they were fragrant. They were very small, little, like little
Korean.
clusters about as big as a tulip.
Oh, wow.
But we will have them for Mother's Day. We might have to get them from Minnesota again. It's been a little warm.
Wow.
They'll be
on the
froze
West
there.
Coast.
Oh, yeah, it'll be frozen there.
And maybe, yeah, so pray that we'll get lilacs, you know, that either Oregon will still be producing or the Minnesota ones will bloom out or something.
Can I come and get them, or do I have to order them and have
You,
them
either
delivered?
way, you
Okay.
can, yep. And actually, if you let me know that that's what you like, we have a lilac notification list, a peony notification list, and one for sweet peas as well, so.
Sweet peas, really, wow.
Because these flowers are so hyper seasonal and people really like them,
Yeah.
so we, yeah. Other
Karin,
questions?
that's beautiful. That
Thank
is
you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I